doing with that technology,
Oh,
the drone technology as well.
It is unbelievable.
Okay, everybody, we're getting ready to start the program. Before we get started, just wanted to remind you to please turn off your cell phones. Okay. All right. Our speaker this evening is Bill Womack, and he is a board member and past chair of the Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors.
Yep.
And the presentation today is going to be on a refresher on engineering ethics and an update on the PELS board. So, without further ado, if you would please join me in welcoming Bill.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about some subjects that I am near and dear to my heart. So we're going to do a little bit of ethics refresher, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the transition that the board is going through from whence we started about 5-6 months ago to where we are today. So what I'm going to do is cover a couple of sets of ethics. One of them is, as you know, NSPE has a code of ethics for engineers, and I always kind of point this out. As everybody should know, engineering is a learned profession. You don't graduate college and you are one. You have to learn your profession. And as professional engineers, you're to exhibit the highest standards of honesty and integrity. And you would think we shouldn't have to say that, but we do. So as we go through this, you're going to see that they have fundamental canons for engineers for their professional duties. Number one is probably the most important thing, and that is to hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. That's what engineers do. It's not to make money. It's not to design big things. It is to basically protect the public. There are other things. You only do services within your competency level. You only issue statements that are objective and truthful. You act as for each employee or client as a faithful agent. I always love number 5. I don't know why I have to say this. You avoid deceitful acts. You conduct yourself honorably, responsibly, and ethically. That's what we do. That's what we're supposed to do as professional engineers. Again, rules of practice from NSPE. Number 1, you've probably seen this before, is number 1 on the last slide. Again, that's our role. The life, safety, and welfare of the public. And so most of these are all the same. Again, we avoid deceitful acts. We act ethical. Then we have professional obligations. As we all know, we are guided by high standards. As a professional engineer, we're probably held to a higher standard than a lot of other professions. We always strive to serve the public. So that's what we do. That's what ethical engineers do. One thing that you sometimes have to tell people is if there is a conflict or a perceived conflict, you need to notify people. And sometimes conflicts or perceived conflicts of information is you don't realize there is one. And I tell this story. This happened to me about 35 years ago. I had a gentleman who basically was a good friend of mine. He was a lighting rep. I'm an electrical engineer. He needed an office. I had an extra office in my, space in my office. I gave him a room and said, you can run your business out of my address, but it's your business. He was selling sports lighting. I was designing sports fields. I had a big project with DeKalb County. We had 27 fields to light. And somebody notified DeKalb and said, well, since this guy who sells brand X is in my office, that's the one I'm going to make sure they get it. I had no idea what they were talking about, but that's the perceived conflict of interest. So I had to go in front of DeKalb County to Park and Rec and say, look, I just lent this guy space. I have no interest in his business. I don't care if he fails. I don't care if he succeeds. I'm doing my job. I don't even talk to him about his jobs. And that's a thing that you don't even think about sometimes, but you have to face. So these things are real, even if they're perceived. So always remember that. You know, you've got to be, you know, you get your employment, you do what you know how to do. Now, grant you work in your field of expertise, but you can expand that field in your career. But you should probably tell your client, no, I haven't done this before, but if you're willing to hire me, I'm willing to try. That's one way. You're not lying and says, yeah, I've done 100 of these different things. Another one is that you don't attempt, you know, to maliciously or falsely, you know, or indirectly hurt somebody's reputation. You know, now you can be very direct and you can say, yes, I think you've made a mistake, but you don't go around behind them and do things that would deceive someone else. Also, this is a very important one right here at the very bottom, which is if you believe they're guilty of an unethical or an illegal practice, you need to present that to the proper authorities. The state of Georgia, that's the PELS board. You know, if you think it's even more egregious than that, you go to the permit people, you go to the electrical inspector, you go to the building inspector, fire marshal. But that's one of the things engineers need to do. And to be very honest, engineers don't eat engineers. Land surveyors eat land surveyors. So we need help. I always say this, the board is not the police department, but we are the enforcement arm of the law, and we need help. So we're not actively seeking the bad guys, but when we are, you know, we know about it, then we will deal with it. So just kind of understand that. Number 8's a good one. I like number 8. As a professional engineer, you accept personal responsibility for your work. It's your stamp, it's your job. I don't care if, you know, Junior, your drafter over here made the error. If you stamp the drawing, it's your mistake. You need to own up to it and understand that. And number 9 really goes back to, you know, you give credit where credit is due. I used to have an example in here from the NSPE Board of Ethics talking about, you know, a young engineer who decides to leave where he's working, he hangs out his shingle, he has to get his promotional stuff together. You know, does he say, I did this, this, and this while working for another guy, or did he say, while working for so-and-so, I was able to do these jobs? That's the proper way to do it. So, you know, we just think about, you know, a lot of ethics really is common sense, but unfortunately common sense has left us sometimes. Okay, this is what I know more than anything else. These are the rules of the PELS board, and this is what we enforce. Number 1, I used to say, what do you read? The exact same thing you read on the NSPE. It'll be the same thing with IEEE. It'll be the same thing with NCES. All of the code of ethics start with this. Health, welfare of the public. That's what we do for a living. And we should know that. One thing that's interesting here is how many people have gone on a website and looked at the laws and the rules and the policies of the board in the last 6 months? 2, 3.
How about you?
Okay. Well, here's always, used to ask this question at first to a big group, and you'd see only 2 or 3 hands come up. Then I get to this and say, all persons, and you are registered under Chapter 15, Title 43, that is the PELS board law, are charged with having knowledge of the existence of the rules of professional conduct and are deemed to be familiar with them. So you should know that. Seriously, I say this, I suggest probably at least once a year, go online, look at, the law doesn't change very often, the rules don't change very often, but it just refamiliarizes yourself with those. You need to do that. And especially if you work in another state, don't assume the laws of Georgia are the same as Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina. They're not. So you'd be very, you need to go out and read these as you go. Again, The second part of this is our rule, these are rules. So most of the ethics and all this are in our board rules and not in the physical law. I'll get to that in a little bit. But, again, you see those same words, safety, health, and welfare of the public. That is what we do. It's not, if you make money, great. If you don't make money, great. You still have to protect the public. Again, rules of practice. You only practice in your area of expertise. You don't pretend. I'm an electrical engineer. I don't pretend that I can do mechanical. I don't pretend I can do plumbing. I probably could, but I won't. So you need to understand that. But if you are functional in either another discipline, yes, you can practice in that discipline. Realize that Georgia is a non-discipline specific state. If I have a PE stamp, I can stamp anything that I can go in front of the board and tell them I'm competent to stamp. So if I wanted to stamp the Mercedes-Benz structure, I could have done that. Yes, sir.
With one exception.
With one exception. What is that?
SE. SE.
No, SE still have to practice when they're realm of expertise. So it's all of them are the same. You have to do that. You don't have a choice. Or you do have a choice. You can come visit us.
At your invitation.
Yeah, as I tell a lot of people in some of these talks, we like people to show up to board meetings. Matter of fact, there's a board meeting Thursday, 9:30, Macon. Be there. But you don't want to be invited there. If you're invited, that's a problem. You don't want to have that problem. Conflicts of interest. Most of them we should know. You need to realize that they will become conflicts of interest between clients and your boss or your company or company to company. Just realize it. And if they are, bring them to everybody's attention. Say, hey, this may be a problem. Don't ignore it. This one I kind of like because I keep going back to it is you only get compensated by one person on a job. You don't accept compensation from a vendor because you spec'd a piece of equipment. Now, I will say this, you go out and have lunch with them, that's one thing. But if they send you a little envelope at Christmas time, that's a totally different scenario. So realize that. But you're only to accept money from one source on a job. And it even talks about, directly or indirectly. We're not going to get crazy if you go have lunch with your lighting vendor, you go have lunch with your power vendor or something, and you say, yeah, I got this big job, help me on it, he does, and you get lunch. That's not the whole thing. It's just getting things. You don't go to your lighting guy after he wins a big job and it's like, well, I need 20 light fixtures for my house. You think they can mysteriously appear at my door? And some people will. That's the problem. So the other one is if you are an engineer and you're doing work and you're also on a government body, you need to recuse yourself from any conflict of interest of you doing your company or you doing work on that project while you're also part of the people who say, yes, this is who we're going to hire. So always remember that. Just a lot of it becomes common sense, but unfortunately, people don't use common sense anymore. Again, on conduct, you accept projects that are in your wheelhouse. Don't take things that you don't know about. A lot of this also, this is kind of silly to me, but it's in the rule. You're supposed to provide a proposal if you want to do engineering work. Well, duh, how do you get paid, So you do a proposal, you understand your scope, you understand what you're going to provide. So I'm not sure why that's in this, for conduct, but it is. You don't misrepresent your record, your academic record, your professional record. You don't tell somebody, oh yeah, I did 15 of these big jobs, that type of thing, or I was a graduate of some fancy school that you weren't. So just realize that again, it's common sense, and that's the part that kind of makes us crazy on these things. Then I love number one. The engineer or land surveyor shall associate only with reputable persons or organizations. You know, if the guy wants to meet you in the parking lot at midnight behind the Target, there's probably a problem there. You know, so again, you know, why do we have to say it? We have to say it. Number two goes back to part of the NSPE thing, and this is where I am serious. You know, if you have a knowledge of someone who is doing something wrong, either ethically or professionally, you know, their malpractice, et cetera, you know, it is you are supposed to, by ethics code, contact the board and work with the board. Understand this also. Your name is confidential unless it has to go to a court of law. Then we have to bring you in. But if it goes through a cease and desist or it goes through something like that, which is a paperwork type thing, your name is never known. Only the board knows it. And we also seal these records later, so you cannot get a public records request and get information on a case. We will not give it out. It's secret. All we'll give out is, yes, so-and-so was disciplined for this reason. So, you know, that's where we need help. And we're going to expect to get help too. Okay, I'm going to do a real quick case. This is a NSPE Board of Ethics, was it BRE or BER, whatever. They have a bunch of ethical cases that they put. It's really an interesting, go to the NSPE site and look at this. It's fascinating what they do. This is one I like. You have a structural engineer. He's using a drone to inspect a bridge for the DOT. While he's inspecting the bridge with his drone, the drone unexpectedly records an encounter between law enforcement and the motorist results in gunfire. So they have a gunfight out on the bridge. So the question is, you know, the engineer reviews his film on his drone and he sees this, and he relays to the Department of Transportation of the event. And the Department of Transportation advises him not to share it with the local authorities unless they ask. Now, I don't know about y'all, but if I'm in a gunfight, I probably don't hear the drone above me taking my picture. So the answer is, what's the ethical obligation of the engineer at this point? He's told his client, I have this. His client said, sit on it, but he still has this. So, any idea what they would tell you? They went through a lot of stuff in here, the discussion, and this is, again, the interesting part you get off the website from NSPE. And they discussed the fact that the engineer ethically has done exactly what he's supposed to do.
As an engineer.
As an engineer, as a professional engineer, he has met the standard of ethics. But, you know, it gets into now a little bit more of, you have something that could help someone. Either help the police or help the guy shooting, one or the other, it doesn't matter. So what do you do? Any idea? Anybody want to play this game with me? Okay. Here's the answer. The answer is, he took the appropriate steps, therefore he's done what he has to do. But it says, while the BER believes the engineer fulfilled his ethical responsibility under the NSPE Code of Ethics, since it's a matter of significant public interest and concern, it relates to public health and safety. They threw this back in on us. Their view is, basically you tell DOT, nope, I'm sending it to the cops, and just say that's what's happening. And that's exactly what they said. You go ahead and send this in because you know you have a piece of evidence that could relate to public safety and health. Okay. One of my...
Then also...
Yes, sir.
That also the scenario falls under whistleblower ethics.
We're getting there. All right. Unfortunately, I think everybody here remembers 1986 in the Challenger. And you know, you watch this thing take off. You watched it blow up, fell to the earth. Well, one of the things that came out of all of this was a sociologist named Diane Vaughan. And she came up with this, what she calls a phenomena inside of engineering organizations called normalization of deviance. And what that really means in a nutshell is Tykal, who designed the O-rings, told NASA that these rings were good for a certain temperature and not below a certain temperature. Well, they shot the first couple off above the temperature. Then they shot one off that was a little bit less. So, okay, that became the standard. Then they shot one off a little bit less. Then that became the standard. They kept going down and down. Normalization of deviance. They kept going down and deviating from what was right. And so, you know, at this point, you know, they think it's okay. Well, unfortunately, for what, 7 astronauts, it wasn't okay. So, you know, you need to think about that in your designs. Again, as an electrical engineer, I'm by code to design circuits to a total of 5% voltage drop. Is 5.1 okay? 5.3 okay? 5.5 okay? The answer is most likely it'll work. But then where do I stop? Do I keep going a little bit further, and all of a sudden it doesn't work? Now, whose fault is that? So, as we go through this, anybody know who Al McDonald is? I know you do. Anybody else in the room know who Al McDonald is? I'm sorry, you should look him up. He died a couple of years ago. So, Al McDonald, and I got all of this out of an interview with this guy, Mark Mayer of Chaplin University, where I think he went to school. And basically, Al McDonald was the guy in the Launch Central. If you know anything about launching of the shuttles, everybody had to sign off on it and say it was a go before it was a go. He wouldn't sign off on it because he knew the temperature was, 20-something degrees that morning. And, you know, this was going on the night before, and he kept telling everybody, I'm not signing off on it. Well, you know, and you know, he refused to sign it. And he said, you know, and I made one of the smartest decisions I ever made in my life, because he refused to sign it because of the risk, what he thought was the risk, again, to health and welfare. This wasn't the public, but it was people. So, the night before, when he wouldn't sign it, NASA went up over his head to some other folks at Tykal. Those folks signed it. They shot it off, and you know what happened. Well, and again, I don't even remember this stuff, but it was. After it exploded, you know, of course, Congress has to get in and have hearings. So they start to have these hearings, and they have all the Tykal executives up front with the NASA people telling the story of how it happened. It's like, oh my God, I don't know. Well, he's back in the gallery, and the story goes, Mr. Speaker, they called him, and he came down, and he told them exactly what happened. And, you know, the whole thing here was, he stood up and said it shouldn't have been done, but ultimately he was overruled. There's nothing he could do about it. Unfortunately, there's nothing the astronauts could do about it either. They're dead. So, as this thing gets on, one of the interesting parts about this is the 7 R's. And the 7 R's are, it's always, always do the right thing for the right reason at the right time with the right people, and you'll have no regrets for the rest of your life. Pretty damn simple, isn't it? You know, and as you probably know, he got demoted. He was the first whistleblower. Congress actually passed the whistleblower law because of him, and he got reinstated back to his old position. He was the product manager, whatever, that designed the O-rings, so he redesigned the new O-rings. But You know, here's an engineer who risked his entire career to do the right thing. I would hope, me included, all of us would do that at some point if you were forced to do that. You would do the right thing.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
You know, it's interesting you talk about specs. I don't know how many have had the same type of situation, but routinely, especially in communications, I have it where customers will ask, well, you know, your spec is X, and I'm only this little bit out. You know, why? It's because we design it to work within the specs. Something way outside the specs, we guarantee it won't work. Something in the middle, we have no idea. That's why we don't make any promises.
We in power buildings, stuff I do or did, face the same thing. I have this product that's just slightly different. You know, is it okay? Well, my answer is no, because it didn't meet the spec. All I can do as an engineer is make a contractor give the owner what I either drew or put in the specs. I can't ask him for that much more, and I can't ask him for that much less. I have to be on that line. I did it, actually, I ran a set of shop drawings this morning, and I wanted 316 stainless steel, and he submitted 304. Guess what? It's not approved. I don't, you know, I'm not even sure I know what the difference is, but my spec said this, so therefore I want this. That's what we have to do. We have to stand up and say, it's not right. So, kind of quickly, I always say this, respect your stamp. You know, as a professional engineer, if you provide an honest service, if you do the right thing, you know, and the ethical thing, and I kind of always put this in, you can't be ethical in your professional life and not ethical in your private life. You know, it's the old thing, well, do I run the yellow light or do I run the red light? You know, but, you know, and be transparent. Be able to walk in front of a judge and say, yes, I did this. Here are my calculations, here are my specs. If I messed up, guess what? I messed up. If I didn't, this is it. You know, I have nothing to hide. So, there we go. That's ethics in a nutshell. Whew, 28 minutes of ethics. Okay, this is an update on the board. In case anybody didn't know, and nobody here was there when they enacted this, not even you. I know that. So,
You want the mic?
Actually, before you move on to ethics, if you or onto the board, one more question on the ethics. On the first one you did with the drone, I was thinking about that one. Why would he ask permission? Did the transportation department own the film?
well, he's working for the DOT.
Right, but whose property was the footage? Was it his or was it theirs? Because if it was his, he should just do it.
I'm not sure I can answer that question.
Okay.
All right, because, you know, it's not his, like when I do a drawing, let's just say it this way, unless the drawing has my title block on it, if I'm working off of an architect's or another engineer's, you know, set of documents, they own that information. I don't own it. I only provide that service. Well, he's providing a service to DOT. I don't know. I'll have to go ask somebody and I'll get back to you later on that. I don't know.
It would be interesting to see who owned the footage.
Who owns the film, exactly. Yeah. Okay, good question. Rats, I don't have an answer. All right, basically the PELS law, which is 43, Title 15, Title 43, was actually created in 1937. Again, pretty amazing how those words just keep falling out to us. Pardon?
85th anniversary.
Protection of life, health, property, and the promotion of public welfare. Again, just a very quick thing. As you probably all know, the board has the power to adopt rules, set standards for licensure, adapt mandatory standards for professional conduct and ethics, investigate and discipline, for basically unauthorized negligence, unethical or incompetent practice. We're also reviewing applications, and we regulate the practice, the professional practice of licensees in the state. That's what the board is supposed to do. All right. just for what it's worth, there's 9 members to the board. They're all appointed by the governor for a 5-year term. There's 6 professional engineers, there's 2 surveyors, and there's 1 public consumer member who is completely not associated with any of the professions. So that makes up the 9 members. And of the engineers, there will always be a structural, a mechanical, an electrical, 2 land surveyors, a civil and sanitary. That shows you how far back the law went. We don't have sanitary engineers anymore. And then 1 additional PE of whatever. Right now, I think one of our members is a traffic engineer. So that's how the board is made up. Okay. Anybody know House Bill 476?
I'm sorry,
Yes.
one question. Are the terms concurrent?
No. Well, you mean all no. The question is, are the terms concurrent between all of the 9 members? No, they're appointed at different times. I'm not sure how that got in there. Let's put it this way. I was appointed in December of 2012 to fulfill the remaining piece of the electrical guy who left for health reasons. I think his went through 15. Yeah, his went through 15. Then I was appointed again for 20. And then I was reappointed, and my tenure ends in 25, and I am stepping off the board in 25, letting fresh blood get in there. And so, yes, they're not all at the same time, so that does help with the continuity of the board through everything. And actually, that's a good question, because we have the law, which we have no choice. We follow the law exactly what it says, and as our advice from our AG, our Assistant AG, Attorney General, our lawyer. We have board rules which we have created over the years, which help kind of clarify in our mind the law. Then we have a third thing called board policies, which are only put together by the board, and the policies, realistically, all they do is help future board members know what past board members were thinking about a certain item, either in a rule or in the law. But again, we can't change the law. That's only done legislatively. So, they passed the bill 476, and basically the governor signed it in May. What that does is that takes the PELS board now is a separate state agency. We're no longer under the Secretary of State's office. We think that this is going to be a fantastic move for engineers and land surveyors and the public in the state of Georgia. Some of the things that we are going to do better. We're going to provide better customer service for our stakeholders and our customers, and y'all are our customers, you know that. We're going to be able to investigate complaints in a more timely fashion. I think I was telling y'all at supper. Right now, there are 43 boards in the state of Georgia. There are 3 investigators in the state of Georgia that work for the 43 boards. Most of these investigators, or not most of them, I believe all of them are ex-law enforcement. So if you can get one scheduled in the next 6 months to go out and meet with somebody on a very technical, either surveying or engineering question, and you write him down a list of questions and you say, ask Junior this. And Junior says, yes, no, we get that back. They don't know that sometimes the answer they're given means I need to now dig deeper into why they said what they said. So that's been one of our burrs under our saddle, if you will, is the problem of getting investigations done. And we have to do it that away because we are a state of rules of law. Everything has to be done in that fashion that we go collect evidence, we review the evidence, and then we decide, is it a case that we take forward or not take forward? In some cases are cut dry, some cases are not. So, that's something that we're hoping is going to help us tremendously by being a separate state agency.
The board members cannot collect evidence.
No, we can't. No, we cannot. We can't bring, I mean, let me back up. I could bring a roll of drawings in and say, man, I look at this thing and this is garbage. But then we got to send an investigator to go out and get in essence, a certified set of documents from somebody, the client or the owner. Then that comes in, that's the evidence. Exactly right. We can't do this. I mean, we had one, I have to admit, was kind of funny. We had a guy who we sent a cease and desist order to, whose office was 3/4 mile from my house. And we sent it certified mail. They rejected it, sent it back, said they weren't there. So on my way to the board meeting one morning, at 6:30 in the morning, I drive in the parking lot, I stop my car in front of his door, I take my cell phone out and I take a picture of his name on the door. He went back in and said, give the investigator now the cease and desist letter, have him go there and tell him it's not the right place. We can do a little bit, but we can't do anything. We can't make the evidence. We can help. Another one is, we're trying to issue licenses as fast as we can. Now, this is, put hardworking Georgians to work. Again, you can't be licensed until you pass the test. So, it's kind of hard to say, how can we speed this up? We can't speed it up. We can't tell you you're going to pass it the first time. So we can't say we have a 3-month period, because you might take 6 months to take the test and fail the thing 3 times. That's one of the hassles of professional boards versus some of the, I'm not sure how to say this, the barbers, the the ladies who do your nails, those kind of things. They don't have a professional license. One of the interesting things on all of this about licensing is professional engineers, land surveyors must work to become licensed, where people like nurses must be licensed to work. And the state has not figured that out in their own head. They're trying to lump everybody together. They've got to separate them. Because if you hold a nurse's application up for 6 months, that's a problem for them. They can't work. You can still work as an engineer. You just don't have your stamp. And you're required to work to get your stamp. You have to work to get your experience to be able to sit for the test. This is the one that, as you can see, I'm doing right now, and I'm hoping that we get more board members involved, is we need to do outreach. We need to be out in front of the engineers. We need to be land surveyors. We need to be out showing them that, we're not some magic Wizard of Oz sitting in Macon, that blows a big flame up and, as I tell my wife when I come home from Macon, we giveth and we taketh away. So what do you want? But we're hoping to get more information out, get people, to be honest with you, get people enthused in this industry. It's a great industry. All right, some of the proposed enhancements, and again, some of this is, I think y'all already know. Number 1 on our list, better software, better website. I would imagine that everybody who got the thing from the Secretary of State's office with the renewal link, it didn't work. Surprising how that happens. Me, I did too. I couldn't, it's like, I can't renew. And we had our ED call the Secretary of State's IT department and say we need to resend this out, and they told us no. We won't have that problem when we own it. We need to have things like same-day response when we get, emails. We need to have daily processing of applications. And let me say about this too. I don't know that y'all know this. My staff, my executive director, and all the people under him, they work for the PELS board and 5 other boards. We get 5/6 of 1 day a week from our staff. We're going to have full-time staff, full-time. It's going to be a whole lot different. We need to acknowledge receipts within 24 hours. We need to, really, again, the outreach. We need to get the community. We need to get involvement by everybody. We need to have monthly complaint updates. We need to have, have our license and applications at least looked at within the first 24 hours. This is a big one right here. Has anybody called down to the board lately? If you want to beat your head against a brick wall, do it, because you're going to get the call center. And I'll be dogged if you can break through the call center. Calls, when we get totally organized, calls are going to go direct to someone in our office. You'll be answered by somebody who knows what you're talking about. And that's a big change. That's been a complaint I've heard for 10 years. Okay, these are some of the changes. Again, we've been appointed by the governor the whole time, but now we're going to have to be confirmed by the Senate. So future board members will be appointed, but again, that's typically a rubber stamp, but that's something that's going to be different. We're going to have a distinct and separate budget from the Secretary of State's office. So all the money that you have been paying that has not come back to the board, all of it's going to come back to the board. We are going to be able to have, when I say, I guess, codifies. A lot of times the Zoom meetings weren't, quote, real meetings. Well, we're going to have in-person and Zoom meetings at the same time so that more people can be involved. Things that are not going to really change is you still have the 15 hours of PDH a year that you still have to have. Nothing is going to change with that. This right here is just something that we have done a couple of years ago, and that was if you were licensed in the state of Georgia for more than 25 consecutive years and you were over 65 years of age, you could waive your PDH requirement. You don't have to have it. Now, I'm over that. I'm more than 65. I still do my continuing ed because I think if I'm practicing, I should continue training myself. But, I may run into a problem next year or two and I just will say, okay, I'm done. Okay, things that happen in terms of expenses. We have to establish a fee structure and we have to establish a budget. And the fees have to be reasonable, and we've determined that because we have to basically be able to fund a fully functional separate office. That's staff, that's FF&E, that's computers, telephones, software, the whole bit. The fees still will go into the general fund. So when you renew your license, it's still going to go into the general fund in the state of Georgia, but then it's going to come back out to us. So just realize that. One major change of House Bill 476 is we are now going to renew on an annual basis and not a biannual basis. So you're renewing, I know this year is our, quote, biannual renew. You're going to have to renew in 23 coming up. So realize that. Now the shocker. Yeah, and get back over here. Come back. Where'd it go? Come back. I went the wrong way. No, come on. I'm sorry. That's the other thing. That's the other thing. My finger doesn't work on Apple products for some reason. Okay. Please don't shoot the messenger. There your old fee structure. Here's your new fee structure. These are annual. So please don't tell me that we have quadrupled the professional engineer's fee. The answer is yes, you can do the math. $50 every 2 years versus $100 a year. That's $50 versus $200. Now, I will ask you, if you're licensed in other states, this is fairly comparable to most other states, because the states that have their independent boards, this is what it costs to do this. There are approximately 20-something thousand engineers in the state of Georgia that are licensed, and there's approximately a little less than 1,100 land surveyors. There's not a big pool to pick from. So that's the fee structure. The other thing that is going to change is some of the fees for applications and reinstatements. Now you kind of notice that reinstatements, this one, they didn't change. You know, the exam didn't change. Some of the applications did change. So that is the new fee structure. So shoot the messenger. All righty. Couple of major changes that have come down.
Back on the fees for the exams.
Yes.
Those are the PELS, Georgia.
Those are PELS board fees. They are not NCEES fees. I don't want to go there right now. I'll spend an hour talking about that if you want me to. I'm an unhappy camper. Okay, we have made a fairly significant change to this board rule, which is sealing of documents. The main change is, the background is, a lot of times where we see there's a disciplinary action against an engineer or a land surveyor, we also find out that they don't have a COA, Certificate of Authorization, to provide services in the state, or it's expired. So we came up with the idea that some other states have used, like Florida and I think Alabama. We're now going to make you, when you stamp, sign, and date your seal, you're also going to be required to put your COA name, number, and expiration date on your document. Number one, hopefully that's going to trigger you to realize, oh my God, it's expired, and you go fix it. Because if you don't, I guess we'll have to send you a little, I think the thing is $500 per offense. And again, every day is an offense. So, I'll tell another story in a minute on that. But so that's really the big change in the sealing of documents, is that you've got to put your, like when I was working, my company was Womack & Associates. So I'd have Womack Associates. I think I had a PEF number, but it expired a certain date. You put that on your document. It's pretty simple. It's 3 lines. I've had some people complain. It's like 3 lines. Yes, sir.
Bill, when you use the term COA, and you just gave an example, right? You put the PE also. You just gave an example.
I'll repeat it. Just go ahead and say it.
You gave an example where you put the PE, the professional engineer firm number, and the date it expires. Mm-hmm. But a minute ago you said COA. You're not referring to the Secretary of State? No.
Okay,
just
okay. No, thank you for that, because that's another problem that we have right now that we have to resolve. We have corporations, LLCs, whatever it is, limited liability, whatever's. They go get their stuff from the Secretary of State's office, and they forget to tell them, oh, by the way, you got to go do something with the PELS board also. So they think when they get their number from the Secretary of State's corporation group, they're done. They're not. Basically, again, you're supposed to know the rules, the laws of the state of Georgia. In there it talks about any business other than someone who works under their name only. You're required to have a certificate of authorization to provide either engineering or land surveying in the state of Georgia. Okay. I had a company that was Womack & Associates, therefore it's not my, it's my name, but it's not my name. I now work under William B. and Womack PE. I don't have to have a COA for that. I have to have a COA for Womack & Associates. That's the difference. And so all we're saying is you have to do this.
Many people will have a company to have a liability shield. They incorporate, they get an LLC. Mm-hmm. And as such, then now they have to have a COA.
They do. That is correct. And again, really all of this is in here. There is one other thing that we're working on.
Yeah, Phil, one more question on the sealing. Is it permissible for the COA date and expiration, number and expiration, to have that as a rubber stamp?
No.
That has to be handwritten on?
No, you can type it in. You can put it on your title block.
Right.
You know, I know a lot of people who have, you know, the company name and then they have this little 3 lines sitting right there on their title and border page.
So the block for the seal and the signature.
If that's on somebody's title and border, yeah, if you want to use it. I don't use those a lot of times. I just stamp over my logo. And see, in my case, I put mine on my logo. So I had my logo with my project number and my, you know, because again, you're supposed to give your clients your name, your phone number, your address, your fax number, those kind of things, typically. You just add this to that. Don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be a seal, it doesn't have to be a stamp, it doesn't have to be anything. Actually, you don't want a stamp because you'd have to replace it every year. Because you're going to get a different expiration date.
If you're doing 30,000 drawings in a year or something, you know.
Well, hang on. We're going to get to that right quick because that's another change that we are working on right now, and that is, what do you do when you have 500 drawings in a set? And I have one guy who came to me who works for a DOT up in like New Jersey or somewhere. He's doing a big job. They have 30,000 drawings. How do you seal those? Well, we're going to take a little bit of a gamble here and say, maybe we can do something to help you here. So we're instituting this part of our rule also, which says, we're not telling you how many drawings. You could have 2 drawings and still do this. You can have a separate sheet in your set of documents that specifically says who did what behind them in the set. Like if I did the electrical, I would do E1 through E300. I would put one stamp, put my stuff there, put my COA. Now, when I say E1 through E300, you also have to be specific. Is this all release 0 or something got, you know, revision 1 on it, that type of thing. So that somebody can go back and look at this, you know, signature page, this table, whatever you want to make, and realize that this engineer is responsible for these drawings, this engineer is responsible for those drawings. We're trying to do that to help people because we realize that things are just getting bigger. You know, numbers of drawings are increasing. The other one, and I will say this, that we are working on, and we do not have an answer for yet, and that's the electronic signature and seal. Right now, our rule says this. If you take an AutoCAD view of your seal and you put it on your title block, and then you have a electronic signature, your signature has to be unique to you, which means it's your signature, number one. It has to be capable of being verified. It has to be under the sole control of the engineer, and it has to be linked to the drawing in such a manner that if anybody touches 1 iota of that drawing, your signature vanishes. That's the problem we're having. Florida has a pretty good rule right now about this, but you now have to go to a third-party vendor to get that verification. And we're struggling with that, of forcing engineers to go buy $100 a year for their signature. You may want to. $67, thank you, Rich.
Hey, Bill, there's been free software that has done exactly that for, I don't know, 20, 30 years. It's public key, private key encryption.
You and I need to talk then. Let's
I
talk
use it
after.
all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right there at the very bottom. We're working on clarifying this because we've been asked to clarify it.
Another question?
Your question about the party that has the free software to do the third-party verification. Some jurisdictions in Florida will not accept that. I've seen it.
Well, Florida itself has a very specific law. They, what that is the third party that Steve was talking about is not accepted in Florida. It's a free third party.
Yes, the free.
Yeah. Florida has actually listed 2 or 3 companies that they will, that's the only ones they will accept. Then you have to pay for that. We're struggling with this having to pay for it bit, and we're trying to figure out how to do that. So that is, and again, I say this, realize this, I don't know what I just did, but we're doing this to protect you, nobody else. Because if somebody steals your drawing and then changes it and it goes and does something with it, that's what we're trying to protect. We're not trying to, we are protecting the public from somebody doing something like that. All right. Let's see if I can make this go again. All right. What did I do, Steve?
Here, hang on.
Here you go. Help me.
Bill, time check. Got about 10 minutes.
Okay. I can make that happen. Okay. One thing that's coming up from NCES, if anybody's heard the term decoupling. Decoupling is where you decouple the experience with the test. That means that you could take the FE exam immediately, pass it, the next day take the PE exam, pass it, you are not a PE. You still have to work your experience. But that means that you can take the test anytime you want. You don't have to now wait either your 4 years or your 7 years or your 16 years. That's going to take us to do a lot of soul searching in our laws and our rules about how we do this. I personally, this is me, I personally have a little bit of problem with this because what I see is somebody passing the test a year out of college, they work 3 more years, they then give us their application assuming we're going to rubber stamp it and we don't like their experience. And we say, no, now you got to go work 4 years and get the real experience under a PE. I can see lawsuits coming up. I don't like it. But I think I'm on the losing end of this argument. I think it's going to happen.
Well, is that any change from how it currently is? You know, you
Yes.
still have to get your
You can't
your 4
sit for the
years
test.
experience.
No, you can't sit for the test until we approve your application. That's the difference. So if you send us an application and your experience is wrong, you don't even get to go sit for the test. You have to wait. So that's, to me, that's the problem.
But either way, the person works what they think is the
Yeah.
experience, and then at the end of that three or 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
only then do they find out that their experience is insufficient.
Exactly, and that's where I'm bugged. Is, again, how do we get to the engineer so that he knows that he's doing the right thing to start with?
Well, not only that, but the test is supposed to be principles and practice in
Well,
engineering.
the test is
not
no longer,
college.
the test is now more an academic test, I'm sorry.
Sadly,
It
yes.
is not what it used to be. It's more of, can you answer questions? So I have to come to that in my own head. It's not an experience anymore. It's just, can you answer some questions? So that's one of the things that we're headed to. So decoupling. Currently 25 states do this. That also affects us on comedy applications. We have to be careful of that. You know, we don't have a position yet. Now, I haven't, my opinion is my opinion only. It's not the board's opinion. Take that for what it's worth. We're reviewing, you know, again, our laws. We're going to come back to people like GSPE and talk to them about, what do you think of decoupling? You know, tell us, you know, that. You know, is the NCES exam, you know, measuring your knowledge based on experience? The answer is no. So we've got to do these things to do our job. All right, Roger asked me to throw these last 3 slides in to let everybody know there is a way for you to verify your license or somebody else's license. You go to that right there, and that's going to pop up. You can put in, you know, that's blank right there. It's all the different boards. You put in engineers and land surveyors. You can put in all, or you can put in PE, you know, LS, you know, whatever you want. You can put in the number if you have it, their name, and then you hit submit. And I didn't add that, but I have a picture of what it looks like. I have Roger's verification. He is a PE in the state of Georgia who is active. The other thing you can do too is you can check the company's certificate of authorization. Same thing, but in this case, you go up here, you click business versus personal. You're going to get this form. That's what you do to verify it. And Roger brought up an interesting thing to me.
If you go back one side.
I'll go back one. Oops. Yeah. Okay. Roger brought up an interesting thing to me.
Third, fourth line down.
Well, let me just do this. Roger brought this up to me. When you go to put in the number, if you do not put in the whole number, you leave the last digit off, it's going to give you 10 names. So you can kind of search out around what you're looking for. Now again, I can show you what it looks like, but when you get this printout, you get this that you can print. It's only going to have a name, it's going to have a PE number, it's going to tell you whether they're active, and it's going to give you a city location only. Will not give you their address, not give you any information about them. And even when we get our software going, it's not going to change. We cannot give out personal information.
On this screen, you can switch between person and facility.
Yeah, exactly. You do it right here. So you can do it that way, and you can search as all you want. Then, for everybody, that's how you renew your license. I'm not going to. You get this to start with. You can put in your whatever. I don't know whether my old password worked or not, but you start there and you can renew your license. So it's there. Any questions? And I made it. King and still champion. What else? Yes, sir.
Are you going to be out from under that fancy review board that was reviewing all the licensing boards?
Repeat the question.
The question is, are we going to be out from under the review board by the governor's office? Thank you to the North Carolina Dental Board for that. I don't know. I need to ask that question. I'll ask it Thursday. I think we will be, because now we are a separate state agency, but I don't know if anybody's thought through that. It would be nice. I mean, we're having trouble even getting our newsletter out because we have to send it to Atlanta to let them review it. Now that all the elections are over, it's going to be a lot easier.
The meeting on Thursday, is that available on Zoom to the public?
It will be available on Zoom by the public. I will send you a link. I will send the other task force members a link, and y'all will have it when I get it. So yes, the meetings are always available right now by Zoom. I'm just not sure how you find the link. Call me and I'll give you the link. That's the easiest way to do it.
Did everybody sign in?
Come have a seat.
Bill, thank you very much.
Thank y'all. I appreciate this opportunity because I know there's a lot of information we need to get out.
Give it a round of applause. Thank you.
That's right.
One more quick question related to going on and doing the verification. I thought you could get the address of registration, because it says on our renewal that we have to provide an address that is publicly available. So maybe it's not on the summary, but if you... No, excuse me. You are exactly right. If you know the person's name and their PE number, Right.
it'll give you everything.
Right.
Because yes, it's on there.
Same for the contracting license.
Yeah. And I can show you what that looks like. I have it in here.
Okay, in the meantime,
Wait, it's right here.
we have a door prize. Door prize is a book. You can choose between two titles that Roger brought in. And do you
Who wants to do Vanna White?
I don't.
Roger, do you want to do
Actually,
random number generator?
that's what it gives you. There's no address there.
How many folks?
See? So your address is not there. Your phone number's not there.
Maybe something's changed. I mean,
No.
I've done
This.
not too long ago, and
I think he did that today.
And the lucky number is number 15.
Now.
because there's a way,
Do you have a list? Who's got
show,
those?
or it used to,
Which do you want?
it used to show the
Well, it may have, but we had to stop a few years back. Now, if you do the 10 numbers, I won't show you the other end.
Right.
You get the names, and then that's all you get. You see?
Okay.
So,
All right, folks.
there's
Again,
a way to
thank
kind
you
of
for coming.
screw around with the system right now.
Don't forget math counts and e-week coming up.
Thank you.
Don't forget your server. Yes, please. And have a great holiday season. Merry Christmas to all of you guys.
We're back here on January 9th.
Yes, it's going to be the
Now,
joint.
one thing you can do from this.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation given at one of the Atlanta Metro Chapter meetings of the Georgia Society of Professional Engineers, an affiliate of the National Society of Professional Engineers. To find out more about us or to join us, check us out at gspe.org.